What are the things that every boat owner should do when they're ready to shut down their boat for the season?
I think right off the bat, the first thing that every boat owner should try to accomplish is making sure that any liquids or anything drink-wise is off the boat. I know there's a lot of soda pop and alcoholic beverages and waters and things like that all throughout the boat, whether it be in coolers, whether it be in compartments or refrigerators. The best thing to do is try to go through the boat one last time and make sure that you get those liquids out, and even liquids that you may not think about, such as chemicals for cleaning the boat, chemicals for washing any component on the boat. Those need to come off as well, because a lot of those contain water that can freeze and ultimately make a mess that you just do not want to come back to.
If you didn't drink all the beer on your boat, shame on you. Get back down here and drink it.
I was going to say, there's still some time left.
That's right, that's right. Well, look who is back. This time we've got a much better setting. The same studio, if you will.
Definitely.
It's a nice studio. Alex with Bow to Stern, thanks, brother, for coming back.
Yes, sir.
And hanging out with me, because we need to talk about winterization. We are in September now. It's just after Labor Day. Yes, it's a little too soon to winterize your boat. We've got boating left, but it's not too soon to start planning. So I brought Alex back because I wanted to pick his brain on the things you need to be doing to get your boat ready for the winter. And so we're going to break this down into three categories. We've got things you should do for all boats, things you need to be doing just for outboards, and then we're going to talk about inboards.
Inboards.
So let's start with the both. What are the things that every boat owner should do when they're ready to shut down their boat for the season?
I think right off the bat, the first thing that every boat owner should try to accomplish is making sure that any liquids or anything drink-wise is off the boat. I know there's a lot of soda pop and alcoholic beverages and waters and things like that all throughout the boat, whether it be in coolers, whether it be in compartments or refrigerators. The best thing to do is try to go through the boat one last time and make sure that you get those liquids out, and even liquids that you may not think about, such as chemicals for cleaning the boat, chemicals for washing any component on the boat. Those need to come off as well, because a lot of those contain water that can freeze and ultimately make a mess that you just do not want to come back to.
And that's happened to me, by the way. I left cleaners on the boat one winter, came back the next spring, and inside the compartment it was just exploding.
Definitely, yeah, that can be a mess, and nobody wants to come back to a mess.
Not only that, I was kind of pissed that I lost the cleaner.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something that we would take care of looking for, especially if we did winterize and things like that. We don't necessarily look through the boat, but if you do have a refrigerator or something like that, we will go through and make sure that those beverages are removed and you are notified about them, or we will dump them and throw away the trash and all that stuff.
And if you didn't drink all the beer on your boat, shame on you. Get back down here and drink it.
I was going to say, there's still some time left.
That's right, that's right.
Definitely.
Okay, what's number two?
Number two, things that you should do for all boats, I believe, is try to make sure that you do some moisture control. So the big thing, the big headache is when you come back in the spring, you uncover that boat and it stinks. It's got all that black mold and mildew all over it. The easiest way and the best way that I've seen is they make a product called Damp Rid. That product there is designed to help pull some of that moisture out from under the boat's cover and try to just make sure that you're not going to come back to a big mess. Another way to try to help and aid in pulling out that moisture is just to make sure you don't have a bunch of wet life jackets, wet towels, wet clothes. Don't leave all the tubes and everything that have been sopping wet inside the boat. Give that boat some adequate time to dry out, or set everything out and let it dry and wash it before the boat gets put away for the season. That'll definitely help a little bit in trying to lessen the mess that you have to come back to in the springtime.
Yeah, like when you get off the water for the last time for the season, like I do, and you mentioned I have a box fan, and I plug that in after every time I cover it, but I don't keep it plugged in the entire winter.
Definitely.
But at least it's getting it dried out before the winter.
Definitely, yeah. And you're going to notice a big difference, especially for those who haven't started using any kind of moisture control on their boat versus the first time you try moisture control. It's going to be such a big difference in what kind of mess you're going to come back to in the boat. Because, I mean, there's going to be something there for you to clean up, but I mean, most people would rather spend just a few hours going through the boat cleaning it versus spending the whole first weekend down here just scrubbing tirelessly away, trying to get that nastiness out. But yes, That's definitely something to help mitigate that.
Yep.
Is best.
Third one.
Third one, and that can apply to whether you have an outboard or whether you have a stern drive, no matter what it is, add some fuel stabilizer. And usually it's a good time to start adding that stabilizer about the last time you're running the boat out. Trying to get that fuel stabilizer not only mixed in well with that fuel, but also get it in the fuel lines, get it to the engine, get it all throughout the system. It just helps tremendously in water and moisture control inside that fuel while you're finishing off the season. I know a lot of clients will ask me, is it better to leave the tank full or is it better to leave the tank empty?
Yep.
It doesn't really matter either way. So the idea behind leaving it empty is once you start the season, you're gonna fill it up with fresh fuel and then it'll all be diluted down if you have anything moisture-wise inside of that fuel, and vice versa with leaving the tank full. It leaves no room for moisture to accumulate, but it doesn't really matter as long as the boat is not being left stored for say 2 or 3 years. And of course there would be a different set of storage options to take if you were planning to do that. But just for winterization time, it's easy enough to just go through and buy some fuel stabilizer at your local boat parts store and just follow the instructions on the little bottle and just add it as needed to the boat.
When you run it, because you got to get the fuel into the system, can you just put your boat down in the water and just turn it on and let it run for a few minutes?
You can, but the reason why it's recommended to actually take the boat out and run it if you're planning on doing that is some of the fuel injected systems that we have and that exist on boats today can take up to 25 minutes just to be able to get that fuel fully cycled out. And that's just from what's at the very pickup of the line all the way to the fuel injector and burnt. So yes, some boats are less fuel efficient than others, but just to be 100% sure, it's best to try to run that boat. And now if you don't run the boat and say you're already gone for the season or something and you don't plan on seeing that boat again until next spring and you're just gonna have someone else take care of it, the fuel in line's not going to hurt the engine just to stay in there, but it never hurts to try to be a little more proactive with trying to protect the whole fuel system.
I mean,
especially.
damn the luck. We're gonna make them go out and ride their boat one more time.
Oh man, I don't know if I can do it.
Okay, and then the last one that applies to all boats would be batteries.
Batteries, yeah. So the big thing with batteries is we all get the headache. You come back down in the springtime and go to start the boat and just click, or nothing at all. The easiest way to prevent that is to either try to put a maintainer on it, and by maintainer, that's something that's going to turn on and off as the battery needs a little bit of charging and maintenance throughout the winter. Yep, trickle charging. And a second way, and probably the best way to do it, is just to ask your technician or whoever's coming down to winterize your boat just to go ahead and pull that battery out and either set it on the dock or have them put it in a location that's going to be dry, that's not going to be exposed to the temperatures. The temperature is usually what kills the battery, and then at least get that somewhere that that technician can help do some of that footwork for you. Or just plain old unhook the battery. Sometimes that's all it takes to help keep the accessories and radio and things that may not fully shut off on older boats from draining the battery down.
I'm no expert, but I had issues with the trickle charger in the first couple of years of owning a boat, and so I just said screw it, and so I started just unhooking. I only have 2 batteries, so it depends on the size of your boat, and I just carry them up, and I put them in the condo or the house, and I tell you what, my life I'm getting 5 years, and most of these batteries are not meant to last that long, but I think that plays a big role because I keep them in a warm condition all year round, basically.
Definitely, yeah. And majority of the time, you're going to get a usable lifespan of 3 years out of those batteries, but definitely if you take care of them, they can give you a little more.
Whether you are looking to buy, sell, rent, invest, vacation, or pretty much do anything at the Lake of the Ozarks, we've got you covered. Just shoot me a message at this number and I will make sure to get you connected to the right people for the job and make sure that your experience or your life at the Lake of the Ozarks is an incredible one. Okay, so that covers all boats. Now let's specifically talk about, so all of those things apply to outboard, but there's 1 or 2 things extra you should do if you have an outboard.
Definitely. So when it comes to outboard time, and I guess this can apply a little bit to stern drives, but for outboard specifically, there isn't a whole lot that goes into them, but a lot of people forget the fact that outboards have gear oil in them. And that gear oil, it's very easy to contaminate with water if you suck up something like a fishing line and it ruins those seals on that propeller. The easiest way to go through and actually make sure that you're not going to have water contamination is just to have the boat either pulled from the water, or if it's accessible on the lift, to have that gear oil checked. And usually it's easiest just to replace it and make sure that there isn't any contamination. And a lot of the times that can be what it takes to set you between a $200 rental on a trailer or a full $2,000 or $3,000 lower unit when it comes to outboards, depending on the size. So a lot of the times that can really save some headaches come springtime.
Anything else on outboards?
When it comes to outboards, the easiest thing to do is just to trim them up and trim them down about 3 times is all you have to do, waiting about 30 seconds in between, and that helps ensure any water that may get trapped inside, and there's usually not a lot, but any water that may get trapped inside there can work its way out. There's a few fuel coolers inside there, but outboards are pretty easy to take care of as long as you just take care of the little things on them.
Yeah, that is probably the reason why so many boat owners are going to outboards, because the winterization is so much less labor intensive.
Definitely, as long as you do it. That's the big thing. As long as you take care of the winterization, which it's very, very minute, take care of that little bit of winterization that goes with them, then they're going to last a really, really long time and save you from a lot of headaches.
Yeah. Okay, is that it for outboard? So we got it all? Okay, so now let's move over to the most complicated, which is inboards.
Inboards and stern drives. So that can become a little, I guess, daunting, you would say, whenever you look in your engine hatch and you see all these hoses and all of these components and pumps and everything like that. This would be the time normally when I would recommend calling a technician that has experience on how to go through and properly winterize down and ensure that your boat is going to start back up without a bunch of leaks and pipes coming apart in the springtime.
But what if somebody's just like that, you know, I know everything and I work on cars and I can go to YouTube and I can figure this out?
Well, the first thing you're probably going to see on YouTube is they may give you the 5 or 6 gallon winterization kit. And that kit, at most times it will work, but it's usually the 5% chance time that it doesn't. And a lot of people say, I'll take that risk, until you realize that risk may entail buying a $15,000 engine. So that's not something you want to come back to the springtime and then the first 3 or 4 weeks out of your season is spending 15 grand just to be able to use your boat again. So a lot of the times I would highly recommend at least getting someone down there to look at it.
Sure.
And then whenever it comes to your inboards, you're going to have things to check on, such as if it's a wake boat, you're going to have water sacks that are in there, which add the weight, the ballast sacks. You're going to have your heaters for throughout the boat. You're going to have your engine's sea strainers. Those go through and make sure that the water coming in the boat isn't going to contaminate the engine with large particles. And then, of course, majority of the systems on inboards do pick up through seacocks. So those there have to be winterized if the boat is planning on being stored in the water throughout the winter, which is not a problem as long as you know how to make sure water isn't left in those valves. Because, I mean, you don't want to come back to a boat being on the bottom of the lake in the springtime.
So I imagine, I mean, if somebody, you know, let's just say, and I think I asked you this question already, like, just to say I come to you and be like, dude, I'm not hiring you. Teach me how to do this. Walk me through it. What would you tell them?
Well, it would start off with first...
I mean, for me, you'd say, jackass, don't do it. But anybody else? Anybody else?
Anybody else, I would say it's going to start off with first determining whether you have a closed-cooled system or you have a raw water cooled system only. So the way to determine that is to look and see on the top side of your engine, do you have a coolant reservoir? And that coolant reservoir is what you're going to put antifreeze, such as you would do in your car. If you have a closed cooled system, it's a little more straightforward to winterize it along the lines of making sure that you're not going to actually destroy your engine block. You need to make sure, first of all, you check the quality of that coolant. That coolant there, over the course of 7 years, will degrade, and it needs flushed and replaced. That we'll go through and we'll make sure with a coolant tester that it is still in quality and it's going to handle the winter temperatures and it's not going to actually break your engine. The other thing that you would have to go through and do is make sure that the actual water pump that pulls water from the lake is drained and purged of all of its water. And then, of course, there's heat exchangers. So that coolant that's in your engine still has to be cooled off somehow. That water is going to cycle through your engine through a course of heat exchangers and then be expelled back up through your exhaust. So you have everything from making sure that your heat exchangers are emptied, your water pump is emptied, on some of them, your catalysts have to be drained, the cooling jackets that go around the catalyst, those have to be emptied. And then there's, depending on your configuration of boat, there's a few other things that goes into just closed-cooled systems. When it comes to raw water-cooled systems only, then you have to go through and not only do what we talked about with the closed-cooled system, but make sure that your engine block itself is drained. Our lake is full of mud and silt, and that tends to get plugged up right there at the very bottom where the water is designed to drain out of an engine. And if you don't go through and pull off the little drains on the bottom and actually poke them and make sure that water's coming out, just because you pull the plug out of the bottom and water doesn't come out doesn't mean the engine's drained. There is 100% water in there every single time.
Really?
You have to go through and make sure that that water makes its way out. And every little spot that you pull water out of also needs antifreeze to be washed back through it. Once you've run that RV antifreeze through and you're 100% sure that it has come out of the exhaust, both sides of the engine block, the back side of the water pump, and any other components that may be pulling water in, such as your sea strainers, those right there are what it's going to take to make sure that that engine or any of those components aren't going to freeze come springtime.
About 10 seconds in, I was ready for you to be done talking. Because you might as well be speaking Chinese to me. Now, I realize that I'm the ignorant one, and most of you probably know what the hell he's talking about. But I think, to me, that just is a beacon of light screaming at me saying, hire about astern to do your winterization. So how do they get in touch with you guys? How do they get scheduled? When do you start doing the winterizations? Give us all the goods. So
the easiest way to get in touch with us is you can just call us. That's the simplest way to do it. Our phone number is 573-410-9492, and just go through, and about 2 weeks before you plan on being finished with the boat, try to give us a little bit of a heads up. I mean, more time is always better, but at least 2 weeks before your last trip down to the lake, or if you're always down at the lake, before the last time you plan on taking that boat out with your family and friends, give us a heads up so that way we can go through and not only remind you of these tips here that we're giving, but also go through and try to get you lined up so that way we can group people and actually be an efficient winterization schedule. That's usually what it is. Awesome. And the easiest way to get a hold of us.
And they can schedule, like, so just to say somebody says this video just kind of like sparked, like, oh damn, I need to do that. But I don't want to winterize till November, but can I go ahead and schedule now? Definitely, yeah. You can schedule at any point. I've had people already scheduling, and they've had some people schedule already a month ago. So oh, wow. Some people are definitely really adamant that their boat is winterized on a specific date, which is 100% fine. I'm more than happy to winterize right in front of people and show them exactly from beginning to end how we winterize a boat. I'm not opposed to that at all. And the other thing with that is I mean, when it comes to winterization, you know, there's a lot of things that we may find that the owner also needs to take care of, such as the liquids, such as the drinks, such as any components that we find that may need a little bit of addressing at the end of that season. Sometimes it's always nice that the owner is willing to be present if necessary. You know, a lot of the times we handle winterization of boats when the owners are already gone and not here planning to come back to the lake till springtime. But either way, we can make it work. We can make it work either way. Definitely. What's the best way to get in touch with you guys? Like I said, by phone is the 573-410-9492, or you can email us. My email is alex@b2s-marine.com, and either one of those two ways would be really easy to get a hold of us. Give us a couple weeks notice, and then we'll get the boat put to bed for the winter, and that way you don't have a problem come springtime. As sad as it is to talk about, it's a necessary evil with our boats, because we all know what the acronym stands for. And I think if you try to do this yourself, that acronym just becomes a little bit more realistic versus trusting guys like this to take care of your stuff so it runs properly in the spring. Definitely. Brother, I appreciate you, man. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And let us know if you need anything. We'll be more than happy to help. And especially if you need us to help show you anything, we're definitely happy to teach. I love it. Bow stern. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for watching another episode on the Lake of the Ozarks Lifestyle Channel. And remember, if you are looking to buy, sell, rent, invest, vacation, pretty much do anything at the Lake of the Ozarks, we've got you covered. Shoot me a message, and I will make sure to get you connected to the right people to make sure that your experience at the Lake of the Ozarks is an incredible one. Thank you for your loyalty to our channel. Don't keep us a secret. Make sure you share this with other people that would be interested. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. See you on the next one.